During the campaign, a nonprofit that was featured rather prominently during Donald Trump's rallies and especially during the Republican National Convention was a Houston-based nonprofit known as the Remembrance Project. The Remembrance Project essentially wanted to do some work raising awareness about individuals who were victimized as a result of undocumented immigrants in the country. So families who had lost a child as a result of an undocumented immigrant, drinking and driving, stuff like that. And so interestingly enough, the families that were prominently featured during Trump's campaign are now pushing back against the Remembrance Project, claiming that they were, quote, used, abused, and exploited by the nonprofit and to a lesser extent, Donald Trump. So more than a dozen families involved in the Houston-based Remembrance Project, including 2 who spoke at the Republican National Convention and several more who spoke at Trump's rallies, were featured in his campaign ads, have parted ways with the organization. The charity has done nothing to help them financially, despite suggesting that the money it raised, including $52,000 or more raised with Trump's help, would be used to assist family members. Now, they've raised way more than $52,000. There was one event where they had Donald Trump speak, and people spent a lot of money per plate just to attend that. And that was where they raised $52,000, and then there were other organizations that donated money to them, including US Inc. They donated $57,500. So anyway, they're raising all this money. They're a nonprofit that is not supposed to be involved in politics, but they were very much involved in politics. And these families who were paraded around during the rallies and during the campaign received absolutely no help. And so now they're upset. One person says, this is Barbara Sparks, "We were used, abused, and exploited. And what's worse is that my son was used, abused, and exploited and is still being used, abused, and exploited." So her son's story is still being utilized by this nonprofit, and she and other families are thinking about suing just to get it to stop. I sort of felt like we were just a dog and pony show on stage for all these people in the audience who were donors and who weren't victims. So Angie Morfin Vargas, she's a Remembrance Project participant. And so she was upset with the way that she and her family were treated as a result of all this.
Okay, so this story's a little nuanced. I think Donald Trump used all these groups, of course, for political reasons, but to be fair, politicians, that's what they do. They use groups for political reasons that they agree with. So they wanted to showcase people who had been hurt by undocumented immigrants so that they could use that as a way to stop immigration and target undocumented immigrants. So, but to be fair, Donald Trump can't control what the organizers of this group does. So he could maybe hold them more accountable. I don't know to what degree he knows about the latest details in this case. And before you get too weepy-eyed for the Brenda Sparks and the others who are saying that they are exploited, first of all, let's be clear. I mean, their son died, so on that, of course, we support them emotionally, and we feel terrible for their loss. But in terms of policy, they're actually pissed at Trump for not being draconian enough.
Right. They want Donald Trump to go after people who are labeled as dreamers in the country, people who were brought into the United States as children and still have undocumented status. They want Donald Trump to deport those people as soon as possible, and they're upset that he seems to have reversed his position on that incident or that situation.
So I think the interesting part of this story is twofold. One is that a lot of these right-wing groups pop up. The woman who runs this is Maria Espinoza, and she ran another group about some healthcare issue, and that
spina bifida.
Yeah, that didn't work. So they're like, let's just leave that aside. Then they go to this. I don't know why they cared about the 2 very disparate issues. They could though. I mean, people have different interests. And then all of a sudden, she started getting paid by a lot of the right-wing groups because they're like, this is useful. Okay, the spina bifida thing we don't care about, but this is useful. Okay, so they start giving them checks, and they're like, good. And she starts to get a little bit more famous. Then she decides she's going to run for Congress in 2018. And I don't know, and there may be that it'll get sorted out in court or something. Did she really promise to give these families money and stiff them? If she did, that she would be the 100th right-wing group in a row to do that. Not every right-wing group does that, but a lot do, like the Sarah Palin trick. Oh, give me money and I will give it to Republican candidates. And then she gives like, I think around 3% of the money to Republican candidates and then spends a lot more money on buying her own books with the money that you donated to her political cause.
It seems like a very fun Republican hobby where you run a so-called charity or a fundraiser and claim you're gonna give money to certain groups of people and then you end up not giving that money to certain groups of people. I mean, Donald Trump did that with claiming that he was raising money for members of the military, and he did the exact opposite. I still don't know whether or not he gave any of that money to members of the military. But in this case, with the co-founder of the Remembrance Project, Maria Espinoza, she claims, I never promised anyone money. We just wanted to be there for emotional support. Okay, well then why are you having these gigantic fundraisers? What are the fundraisers for, right? And also,
you are, good idea.
Yeah, you're a non-profit organization that is supposed to abide by certain laws, right? You are supposed to be in trouble with the IRS if you are non-profit and involved in the political world, right? And she's very much involved in the political world. They went to, campaign rallies with Trump. They had members of their organization speak at these rallies. They had family members speak at these rallies. And so this is very much a political group. There's no question about it. So why do they have a nonprofit status? It's ridiculous.
So our campaign laws are basically considered a joke at this point. So Karl Rove used the same laws. Karl Rove's doing something non-political? Is that what's happening? He's not doing it for cancer research. No, everything he does is for the political campaigns that he works on. But he will set up 501c4s. Okay, that's fine. Then 501c4s and or C3s. That's a lot of numbers. And they'll just say, oh, it's a charity. Our charity is Republican politicians, right? And nobody's minding the house. They, on purpose, split the vote so that there's no enforcement. It's split between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans refuse to ever investigate abuse of other Republicans and other right-wingers. And the establishment Democrats won't investigate the establishment Democratic candidates. So lo and behold, all the politicians get away with it. If you're a real progressive though, and you even put a comma in the wrong place, they will both agree to come down on you like a ton of bricks. So understand who has to abide by the law and who doesn't.
Right, and I want to leave this story with a quote from a Texas Republican activist because I think it's telling in terms of how this organization raises money and how misleading they seem to be. Let's go to graphic 19. Texas Republican activist Kathleen Lieberman, who attended the luncheon with 10 associates who paid $125 each for tickets, said, quote, "We believe that the money after the dinner was going to help the families, and I was very disappointed to find out that it didn't." Well, so were the families.
Membership helps fund the Young Turks. You know one great thing about that? That means we're not accountable to anyone but you guys. That's why we're strong together, because we built this show around you. Come build it even bigger and better at tytnetwork.com/join.